Yeah, welcome back to all the course participants in the second lecture of today's series. So we will cover here the various type of services and the different type of receivers, what are the type of errors in the GPS receivers and what type of accuracies we are attaining. So that we will cover here in this second lecture. So the various satellite-based navigation systems, Navista, GPS, GLONASS and Galileo, they provide different type of frequencies like the standard positioning frequency for the civilian purpose and precision positioning service using the P code for the military purpose under the Navista GPS series. Whereas the Russian system GLONASS, it also provides SPS, that is the standard precision service, that is SPS, and the high precision service for the defense, for the Russian defense. So like that, the very analogous terms are there in the Navistar and GLONASS systems belonging to the civilian and the defense services. Only changes the positioning and the precision. The terminology has changed with the meaning of standard and precise for the low and high accuracy in the two cases. In case of Galileo, they have a commercial model with open services also. So they have different type of services. 5 services are there. One is the open source service for all. Another is the safety of life service. Then they have commercial service for Galileo operating consortium basically, and publicly regulated service that is known as PRS for the European police and anti-fraud agencies, and then search and rescue services, that is the SAR L6 service, which is under the COSPAS SARSAT system. All these systems work on the Earth-centric, Earth-fixed coordinate system, as we have discussed the initial slide, based on the different geodetic systems like WGS 84 and the PZ 90.11 system. So they have the origin at the center of the Earth. However, when we see the elevation in our receivers, they are above the datum, which is considered the reference ellipsoid. So the original calculations are always with respect to the center of the Earth, and then they are transformed to the datum. So that is how the numbers are shown in the GPS receiver. So that has to be understood. Initial calculations are always with respect to the center of the Earth and then being transformed to the respective datum of the system which we are using in the receiver, either the WGS84 or the PZ. Coming to the type of receivers which are available, so we have a single frequency receiver, dual frequency receivers, and the multi frequency receivers. So now the receivers which we have been working for last 18 years or 20 years or so, we will see that the single frequency receivers, like my experience and many of the users among you, we started our working with the Leica 300 series receivers, and then we came to Leica 500 series receivers, then Leica 1200 series of receivers, then the Trimble R7 receivers, Trimble Net R9, Trimble Alloy receivers, and the handheld receivers like Garmin, Maglin, then the models Zuno and Xeno from Leica and Trimble, Spectra Precision, Aztec receivers. So these receivers over the time has also improved. So in initial phase, about 2002 to 2010, 2015 phase, the receivers, they were having an accuracy of the order of 1 centimeter plus 2 ppm. But then the latest receivers which came into the market and which are single frequency, that means they are giving on the CA code only and L1 frequency, then they are giving an accuracy of 5 millimeter plus 1 ppm. That is the current situation. They are processing the L1 carrier waves in the post processing, and they are able to give very high accuracy of the order of 5 millimeter in the DGPS solution, differential GPS solutions. Standalone accuracy will again remain 10 to 20 meter only, but the differential solutions will give 5 millimeter accuracy. Similar accuracies are available from dual frequency receivers also, while giving 3 millimeter accuracy in the latest system in horizontal and 3.5 millimeter accuracy plus 0.4 ppm in vertical. These are available from dual frequency receivers and multi-frequency receivers, the latest ones. However, the issue is that in the single frequency receivers we can have the baselines up to 15 kilometer only. So whenever we are working with the small study areas, we can use single frequency error receivers, providing us accuracy of the order of 5 millimeter. But when our uh, study areas are large, such as suppose if we are setting up the baselines with rover stations at different cities like Delhi, Dehradun, Ambala, Hyderabad, Jaipur. So where the baseline lengths are in hundreds of kilometers, we have to use dual frequency receivers or multi-frequency receivers only, and they will require large occupation times as per the baseline length. However, for the similar baseline lengths, the single frequency receiver will require more occupation time as compared to the dual frequency receivers. But the main limitation is the baseline length. In single frequency receivers, baseline length is limited by 15 kilometers or so. Another classification of GPS receivers, which is not very adamant but representative only, is the geodetic class of receivers, mapping grade receivers, and navigation receivers. So geodetic class receivers, they are able to provide sub-centimeter accuracies by differential GNSS solutions, either in post-processing or RTK or PPS methods. So they provide us high accuracy. For the reduction in the multipath errors, we use choke ring antennas. This is a special design of antenna. We will see that, and it reduces the multipath errors. Whereas the mapping grade receivers, they provide accuracy of the order of 3 meters. Okay, so these values are representative values again, and these are less expensive, very portable. Whereas the geodetic receivers are a little bulky, and we have to carry them in suitcase type of arrangement. Mapping grid accuracy is high, and it can be used for AM, FM, UM kind of thing, like where you have automated mapping for facility management or utility management. So there we can use mapping grid receivers also, and navigation receivers like for transportation, specifically car navigation or bus navigation. We can use receivers with 10 meter accuracy or so. These have limited data storage also, whereas geodetic class receivers, they have a memory space of GBs currently, and they can store data of years together in continuous mode with a 1 second observation rate. So that is happening at the continuously operating reference stations, which are placed all over India and all over globe also, for various type of crustal movement studies. So these different classes of receivers are used as per the requirement. Now we are using different surveying techniques here. So primarily what happens when we are coming to the satellite technology, we require to georeference the satellite images or aerial images also. So we require to have control points. So if our study area is small and we have smaller baselines, then we use rapid static surveys or the fast static surveys, where the baselines are smaller. They are like 5 kilometer, 10 kilometers, or less than 20 kilometers. So with an observation time of 20 minutes to 50 minutes or 1 hour or so. Whereas if the baselines are longer and we are serving large areas, study areas, and we have baselines longer than 20 kilometer, maybe 50 kilometer, 100 or 200 kilometers, there our observation periods are 1.25 hours to 24 hours to 72 hours also. That depends upon the kind of post processing we are doing and the kind of accuracies we require. So these type of these two specific type of surveys we are particularly doing with respect to our work in remote sensing and photogrammetry and geosciences for crustal movement. Then for other applications like automated mapping or facility management, utility management, where we want to map all the electric poles, all the post office boxes, all the main holes, all the hoardings for various departmental requirements for revenue purposes, or power GIS, where each electric pole, each transformer has been mapped. So we do stop and go survey. That is the third kind of survey which we do. So in a stop and go survey, happens that we switch on the receiver at a particular location, like a tree or a electric pole or a post box or at a main hole or at a hoarding, and we take a observation and move to the next one. So we take a momentary value observation and we take other one, because what happens, like in case of a tree, if we see the tree canopy itself is 5 to 10 meter, so we need not to have very high accuracy. We just take a value there for the coordinate and move to the next tree and then next. So it will provide us a little lower accuracy, but that is sufficient for the purpose. Then there are certain other applications like our cab services from Ola, Uber, Meru, and others, where their control stations want to know where is the vehicle at continuous point of time, or where our aircrafts are taking off and en route they fly to their destinations and land. So we want continuous track of aircraft, or we are testing the missiles, where again we want the missiles how they are moving, or we are launching the satellites are also equipped with GPS receivers nowadays, and even in Indian satellites we are putting IRNS receivers. So when the satellites are launched, the track is also measured using the satellite based navigation techniques. So this fourth technique, where we are having continuous observation for the position of the receiver on the car, on the satellite, on the missile, on the user, to keep a track and prepare a trajectory, that type of survey is called kinematic survey. We need to note here that, as we have discussed in the initial slides, GPS is a one-way ranging process. So how we are getting the track now? Because it do not send. So that means we have to understand here, it is not a GPS, but along with the GPS there is a tracking device which sends the signal back to a control center and gives the position there. Okay, so GPS on its, if you are carrying it, nobody will be able to track you. However, if there is a tracker along with the GPS, then you will be tracked. Then the fifth technique which we are using is the differential GPS or the differential GNSS, that we will talk separately, where we are using two or more number of receivers together to provide high accuracy and to remove many kind of errors, which we will discuss first now. So there are different sources of errors when we do the GPS or the GNSS observations. One is the selective availability. Selective availability is a intentional error which used to be there in the Navistar GPS signals, which are created by the US agencies to distort the signal to certain measurable extent and degrade the accuracy. So in the initial phase, we used to get an accuracy of the order of 100 meters. 70 to 100 meters accuracy we have been getting because of this phenomena called selective availability. The selective availability phenomena has been stopped since 1st May 2000. So after that, only we started getting 10 to 20 to 10 to 30 meters of accuracy mathematically. Before that, we used to get 70 to 100 meter accuracy. So it's only 1st May 2000 onwards that we are talking about accuracy of the nature of 10 meters or so, because of the stopping of the selective availability phenomena. Then there are certain errors in the clock. They are there. Then we have ephemeris errors, that means in the measurement of the coordinates of the satellite, which is acting as a control stations or the known location in the orbit for the trilateration of the user position. So those positions also do have certain errors. They are represented by the ephemeris errors. And then there are atmospheric delays when the signal travels from the troposphere and ionosphere. So they also need to be corrected. And then multipath errors. Sometimes, as you see in the figure, the signal actually hits a building, or it may hit the ground also, and then it may reach the antenna. So these are called multipath errors. Then there are receiver errors itself. What is receiver error? This is a kind of a inherent error, like when you construct or fabricate two watches, similar watches using same people, same machinery. Still, those two watches may give some minute differences. So there is an inherent error which is there in the receiver, which cannot be corrected actually by the use of differential GPS, and that is termed as the receiver error. So this table shows the error budget. So we have user range errors, which consist of the system errors. System errors constitute the ephemeris data and the satellite clocks, whereas the atmospheric errors constitute ionospheric and tropospheric errors. In the tropospheric errors, 90% of the errors are because of the derived delay due to dry gases in the atmosphere, and 10% delay is because of the water vapor and condensed clouds in the atmosphere. So these ionosphere and tropospheric errors are to be removed in the differential GPS processing, which you will see. And then there is a user equipment errors, which constitute the receiver noise and the multipath error, which are difficult to remove and through the differential GPS process. Then the speed up is being calculated, positional dilution of precision, as we have talked in the previous slide about GDOP, PDOP, HDOP and VDOP. So if these are unitless numbers, and if we see a PDOP of 2, it means that in the worst case, a 1 meter user regions error, which consists of system errors and the atmospheric errors, will result in 2 meter of positional errors. Why it is important to understand that when we are talking about the user range errors, these are the errors between the satellite and the receiver. So this measurement has an error which is represented by URE and UEE, user equipment error, whereas PDOP is talking about the error in the position of the receiver. So one is the error in the range, another is the error in the position of the receiver. So PDOP talks about the positional errors, whereas the URE and UEE talks about the range errors. So in the standard GPS, when we are using the standalone operations, the satellite clock errors may give an error of the order of 1.5 meter. Orbital errors may be of the order of 2.5 meter. These are representative values only. Ionosphere error may be from 5 meters to 50 meter. Tropospheric errors may be also from 50 centimeter to 15 meters or so. Receiver noise is about 30 centimeter. Multipath errors are also of the order of 60 centimeter. Selective availability is of the order of 30 meter. However, selective availability is switched off, so it is not a concern to us. But in the initial days, you can see here typical positional accuracy was of the order of 100 meter or 90 meter. That was because the selective availability was on. By the differential GPS process, which is the fifth mode of surveying here, the satellite clock errors can be fully corrected, orbital errors can be fully corrected, so these may be brought down to 0. Ionospheric errors can be reduced, but still certain amount of errors retain there even after removal of the errors, like 40 centimeter in case of ionosphere, 20 centimeter still in case of troposphere. Receiver noise and multipath still remains, and selective availability can be removed, but it is not there now. Now when the satellites are there in the orbit, they come in the visible region of the satellite receiver, the user receiver, and the satellites go out of that range also. So they also do rise and set like the sunset and sunrise. So they are in the region of coverage from the satellite, or they are out of the coverage of the receiver. So here, when they this is the position where the receiver is shown, and this is the horizontal plane or the horizon, what we can say. When the satellite rises and comes in the visibility region of the antenna, the initial observations have more amount of errors, and we mask these values, okay, by entering a value which is called mask angle in the geodetic receivers. In the cheaper set of receivers, like the handled receivers like in Juno model, there is a built-in value like 5 degree, which we cannot change. SB, SC, SD models in the Juno series of Trimble, the value of mask angle is 5 degree, which we cannot alter. But in case of geodetic receivers, this value can be altered in the post-processing mode. So in fact, while you are collecting the data, you can always keep the mask angle as 0 in the differential GPS systems, but while processing, you can play with the mask angle values to improvise the solutions, which we do actually. So you can acquire the data, and in the post processing, you can resolve these issues. So selective availability is now switched off, and it used to provide us an error of 1 sigma of 50 meters, and 95% of the time it was in the, that is about 100 meters. So this figure diagrammatically show the atmospheric delay which happens when the GPS signals pass through a layer of charged particles. The kind of studies we are doing in total electron count, TEC measurements we are doing. So the TEC measurements are required for the ionospheric corrections and the delay in the tropospheric region, also using the wet delay and the dry delay. So these also require corrections. So when you have a small baseline, the advantage is that the Sastemonian and Hopfield models are there in the softwares which we are receiving, like SkiPro from Leica or Leica GeoOffice or Trimble or Spectra Precision. So they use the default values for the corrections. But if the baselines are very long, then the atmospheric conditions may also be very different. So ionospheric conditions or tropospheric conditions may be very different, and there we need to use different scientific softwares like Bernice or Gamut for solving the equations and finally derive the coordinates of the base station and the rover stations. So after correction of various type of errors like atmospheric delays. So that is how the processing methods, processing softwares may vary based on your requirements, application, and the length of the baselines. So troposphere is the lowest layer of atmospheric, varying from ground to 7 to 14 kilometers from equator to the poles respectively. The pseudo range errors also varies from 2 meter if the satellite is at the zenith to 30 meters for a 5-degree elevation. So zenith means overhead. So if the satellite is just above the receiver, if you have a receiver, the satellite is just above that, then the pseudo range errors may be of the order of 2 meters, while when the satellite is about 5 degree from the horizon, at that time the pseudo range errors may be of the order of 30 meters also. The delay depends upon the temperature, pressure, humidity, and elevation of the satellite. The hydrostatic delay occurs due to presence of dry gases about 2 meters in the zenith direction to 10 meters in the lower elevations. Wet delays occurs due to water vapor and condensed clouds, only some tens of centimeters. So wet delay component is lesser as compared to the dry delay component. The atmospheric refraction also constitutes errors, and the atmospheric refraction depends or it is a function of various type of activities, like the sun activity, which is having a 11 years of sun spot cycle. Then what is the thickness of the ionosphere at the time of the survey, the proportion, concentration of the ionized particles in the ionosphere, what season we are doing the survey, the actual path traveled by the signals from the satellite to the receiver. The pseudo range errors here also may vary from 0 to 15 meter at the zenith. Again, zenith means the overhead. So if you have a receiver at a place, the overhead, the errors in the zenith position may be 0 to 15 meter, whereas when it is at the lower elevation, then the errors may go to 45 to 50 meters errors also. So these errors are to be corrected in the processing. The delay is proportional to integral number of free electrons along the transmission path and inversely proportional to the square of the transmission frequency. So that is the point here which makes the SPS different from the PPS, the precise position service and the standard positioning service. The standard positioning service is not able to do correction for the ionospheric errors because it is having the CA code only. But the receivers which are there with the defense agencies which do get the P codes, the US agencies which are having the P code signals, as per the dispersion theory, what happens that the same signal pass through the two different frequencies. CA code is available on the L1 as P code is available on the L1 frequency also carrier wave, and L2 frequency carrier wave also. So the P code which travels on both the carrier waves, it reach the receiver at different times on the two frequencies, and that can help in the removal of the ionospheric errors or the reduction of the ionospheric errors. So that is how the military receivers and the civilian receivers differ here. Multipath errors are because of the indirect receiving of the signals by the GPS. So here we can see that the GPS signal is hitting the ground, which is here, and then it is hitting the receiver after that. And then the receiver is getting signal either directly or by hitting a building also. So if it is hitting some feature and then reaching the GPS receiver, then it is called the multipath error, because it incorporates a error in the range. There is a hardware called ground plane which is placed at the bottom of the receiver hardware to reduce this effect when the signals come from after hitting the ground. However, it is not able to remove 100% of those signals. So like this, the multipath signals are there, and sometimes when we are traveling in the hilly region or the urban canyons where we have high-rise buildings, we have obstructions between the satellite path and the receiver. So there also we get the obstruction in the signal. So it can happen in the urban canyons between the buildings, narrow lanes, or it can happen in the hilly regions also. So there also in an open area, what happens, you are getting the signals from all the sides, but when you are traveling to a let us say a wall on one side in the form of a building or a hill, then you may not receive signals from that side, and you may have a skewed set of receivers, skewed set of satellites giving signal to the receiver. So the dilatation of precision values may degrade, resulting in the reduced accuracy. Indoor also similar, however, with the L5 signals, we are getting indoor navigation also, and with the series third, that is the block 3 satellites, further indoor navigation will be boosted. Lot of publications have started coming on indoor signals. You can refer to publications by Kurush Khoslam from University of in the Sydney in Australia. So indoor navigation is also being used nowadays, and such activities can also be done using the receivers which are especially L5 enabled. Then while we are surveying, we should avoid placing the receivers near the buildings or near the electric lines which are affecting the signals. Another error is the human error. So human error shall also be taken care of, because there are no bounds to human errors. So it may create a very critical impact on the project, such as when we are doing the setup in the geodetic receivers, a UTM zone, if you are entering, it should be correct. In one receiver there is one UTM zone, in another receiver there is another UTM zone. So those kind of issues has to be taken care while doing service, while doing the GPS service. So that has to be taken care. So like this, these four major type of GPS surveying techniques are there, and various errors which we just now discussed are there, and these can be corrected using the differential GPS systems. So first, to begin with, the first processing is there that we directly use the standalone mode of GPS, wherein we use single receiver, but that is providing us the 10 to 20 meter accuracy, and good for utility management purpose, facility management purpose, where we require little low accuracy. For navigation purpose, car navigation, we require this kind of accuracy where we can use standalone receivers. However, for precise applications, we use differential GPS or differential GNSS receivers, where we use minimum 2 receivers together. It can be 3, 4, 5, or even more, but minimum is 2. So because one we use as a base station, another we use as a rover station. So what happens, like in this specific case, we can consider this as the base station. So at base station, we have already done a survey, so we know the precise coordinates of it in the form of x, y, z, which are the corrected coordinates. So we have a known location here. That known location we call the base station. We operate a GPS here at the base station. So when we do the survey, so it is a known station already, and now at some point of time we need to do the survey for other rover stations. It may be a dynamic application or it may be a static application. So in that case, what choice we have is that we know the coordinates of the base station. So we do a setup of the GPS here, and we can run the GPS here round the clock. And we take our rover station. Rover station refers to the GPS which we are taking from point to point for the purpose of measurements at the control station locations, to use them as checkpoints or GCPs for our georeferencing of satellite images or satellite triangulation in the case of photogrammetry. So that time we operate the base station also. So when we are operating the rover and base station both together, so first we do the calculations at the base station. What calculations are possible there? We already know the corrected coordinates x, y, z. Now the signals which we are receiving in real time, they are referred as broadcast ephemeris. So using the broadcast ephemeris data, the coordinates calculated are x dash, y dash, z dash. At this point of time, the rover is also there in the place. It is on the location of the GCP or the checkpoint. So there also measurements are going on. So now we can calculate the error at the base station. In x, the error is delta x, which is represented by x minus x dash. X dash is derived from the broadcast ephemeris, whereas x is known from the previous survey. Now similarly in y and similarly in z, we can calculate the delta y and delta z. Now for small baselines, we can assume that the same error is there at the rover station also. So once the errors are known at the base stations, these can be implemented on the user receiver also at the rover station. Now there are two possibilities to do that. One is in real time. So for some real time application, you want the coordinates of your car which is moving in the market very accurately. So you can have a RTK solution, real time kinematic solution, where you have a modem to transmit the errors at the reference station or the base station and do the corrections at the rover station. So that is one way. Another thing is, if you are doing for the satellite triangulation purpose or georeferencing the images, then you can complete the survey, you can come down to the office and you can do the post processing. So the question which came after so much of discussion, after talking about various type of GPS surveys, static survey, rapid static survey, fast static survey, stop and go survey, kinematic survey, the solution to the question how to remove the positional accuracy remains with the differential GPS or GNSS use. So we have to use this. So fundamentally what we have to do, we have to use a base station and a rover station to correct various errors. So that is the backbone or the concept behind the GPS. So what happens here, one, the position of the base station is known, and here because the position is known, normally what happens that the timing is calculated first from the receiver and the satellite, that is T1 and T2, time of emanation of the signal and the time of receiving at the receiver end. But in case of differential GPS positioning, what is happening? Timing is calculated backwards from the known position of the base station. So it is a reverse engineering process, and that helps us in doing the correction as we have seen in the previous slide. So this helps us in the differential GPS processing. So first the corrections are done at the base station, and thereafter the corrections are carried out at the rover stations. So the condition for that is that minimum 4 number of satellites should be common among them. With the today's GNSS concept, almost at a point of time, receivers are receiving somewhere 30 to 40 signals at any point of time. So very easily 4 signals are common to them. Them means the base station and the rover station. So we get a very quick fix. So we get the solutions very fast for differential GPS also because of that. However, that does not mean that we should do very small duration surveys. As I have told you that the almanac data requires time to be downloaded. So if you have 30 satellites or 40 satellites in your coverage area, then it may require you to have 15 to 20 minutes to download the almanac data. So my sincere recommendation will be there that never use any GNSS, DGNSS observations less than 20 minutes. If the larger baselines are there, don't use or take the observations less than 50 minutes to 1 hour or 1.25 hour for general surveys also, wherein we are talking about a city level of surveys. So we are doing surveys in Delhi or Dehradun. However, the area of these cities also very largely. One is some smaller cities are there, some are very large cities are there. So accordingly, the baseline lengths will also change and the observation duration shall also change. So same thing is mentioned here. So we are removing the errors based on the known position, and we are backward calculating the timing also and doing the corrections. So this is a step-by-step procedure for doing the corrections in DGPS survey. So as we have discussed, two methods are there. One is the post process. So first you do the survey, complete the survey, come back to the office, and then you can process the data. Another option is the real time, wherein you are using a modem or a transmitter at the base station location to send the correction signals in the form of RTM signals or some mode. It can be through an internet based mode also, that is also possible. So the corrections are sent in real time, and the person can get the real time correct coordinates into the field, and due to the technological developments, the corrected point, line or area vectors, polygon, they can be updated into the internet servers also in the real time. So it depends. Now we have a merger of technology where you have receiver, you have a camera, you have a internet, you have a SIM card, you have connectivity to the softwares also in the receiver itself. So things can be updated in the field itself. So in that cases, real-time kinematic solutions can be done. Now here there is a scheme which I have prepared for the doing the field work. So suppose there is a rectangle here, which is actually not shown here, but you can consider this as a rectangle here, and then we have the base station somewhere established in the center of the satellite area and satellite scene, or the surveyed area through the aerial survey. So base is there, whose first the base station coordinates are determined. Either they are determined from the previous surveys, or they can be determined using the 72-hour survey of GPS observation at this base station, and processing that with the international GNSS station data. So IGS station can be used to calculate the coordinates of the base stations if they are not known from the previous surveys. So that is how we can make new base stations, because everywhere we do not have base stations. So that has to be created first. So that can be done, and then we can have rover positions at R1, R2, R3, R4 and R8 in sequence like that, through the GPS survey which is planned based on the study site. And let us assume that we have two receivers only. So one receiver is consumed at base and another we have at rover station 1. So if we have two receivers only, we will have radial solutions only, because we can calculate one baseline only at a time. So we have to install the rover at R1, do the survey for sufficient time as per the base length, and then we have to take the receiver to the location R2, to the location R3, and it will provide us radial solutions only, so which will have little lesser accuracy. However, if we have three receivers, which is an ideal case, then what we can do at the same time, we can use two rover stations. So we install the GPS receivers at R1 and R2, and base station is already running. So we have common observations between R1 and R2, R1 and base, and R2 and base. So what will happen, we will get a solution for all the three baselines, R1 base, base R2 and R1 R2. So we have triangular solution. So what will happen as per the triangulation, what we do in the surveying, we do the error adjustment. So if we are creating well conditioned triangle, which means the none of the angles should be less than 30 degree or more than 120 degree, we can have very good error adjustment. Actually, this is the type of surveys whose accuracy is actually mentioned in the brochures. What when we are talking about 5 mm error, 3 mm errors, they refer to this kind of survey wherein we are getting the triangular solutions, which is the best type of solutions with adequate amount of observations and appropriate processing. Then only we can achieve those kind of 3 mm, 5 mm kind of accuracies. So when R1 and R2 observation is completed, then this R1 GPS will be taken out, and it will be taken to R3 location. So please note, R2 is observing continuously observations still. So now the second triangle will be found using R2 base and R3. So now we have three baselines, R2 base, R3 base and R2 R3. Again next triangle is found. Once this observation is completed, let us assume for 1 hour common between R2, R3 and base, then this R2 will be taken out and it will be taken to R4. So now the third triangle is forming with base R3 and R4. Okay, so every time we are moving in a triangular formation. Suppose now today the first day has ended. So next day if you do the survey beginning in the morning, then this R4 has to be reoccupied again. So the last point surveyed at a day becomes the first point to survey next day. So now the two rovers has to be taken to R4 and R5 on the day 2. So now the triangle base R5 and R4. So these three baselines are formed. Then R4 will be taken out after sufficient observation and R4 will be taken to R6. So now R5 base and R6, this will form the triangle. So like this we complete our DGPS surveys. This is the kind of scheme we form there. So this was for a case when we have two receivers only and we have radial solutions, and this is the case when we have triangular solution. So we move in this scheme. So if we are doing the post processing, it is simple. When we come back, we have softwares which have very good GUI nowadays. Lot of things are automated, like downloading the IGS station data. They are also, once you select the IGS stations, it will download automatically. Previously we have to separately download the SP3 files, but nowadays based on the input data, which is the data which we have collected in the rover and the base, the IGS station data will be automatically downloaded and it can be processed. So softwares are very friendly nowadays, and entire processing can be depicted in 3 steps only. Download the rover station data, download the base station data, and use the software for corrections. Okay, so this is the ideal situation when we have perfectly adjusted, planned, conducted the GPS survey. Processing has become very easy now, and it provides us the highly accurate millimeter level accuracies. Only thing is that we have to take care of all the precautions, like well conditioned triangles should be there, sufficient amount of observation should be there, GPS points should have been correctly targeted. They have to be visible in the both the overlapping scenes in case of photogrammetry, or if it is a 2D scene, then it has to be properly visible, sharply visible in the satellite image. So this processing will reduce or remove all the errors except the multipath, and the receiver noise also remains there. So the basic advantage of DGPS is, again, it provides very high accuracy, and it is fundamentally very suitable for urban mapping where we are looking for sub-centimeter level of accuracies, or in water sources where we are looking for millimeter level of accuracies, and in case of geodetic measurements, crustal deformations, we are looking for millimeter or sub-millimeter level accuracies also. So there these kind of observations are very useful. If you are processing the GPS observations very correctly, then you will get a precision of the order of 2 mm to 6 mm. That kind of precision we are going to get in the GPS surveys. Now we have a continuously operating reference station which we have established at IIRS, which is shown here, and this is the Trimble. This is the front end of Trimble Pivot software for the dynamic viewing. So this is the Google Earth is there where the location of the GPS is pointed in the IRS campus. Indian Institute of Remote Sensing has established such 15 continuously operating reference station in the Himalayan region for its project. Similarly, National Remote Sensing Center has also established a large number of receivers in the various parts of India, from deserts in Gujarat and Manali, Chandigarh, and in the Himalayan region. They have NRSC has also established a lot of stations. SAC is also taking care of CORS stations in the neighboring locations of Ahmedabad. So, like that, IRS, NRSC, and SAC, they are having the continuously operating reference station network all over India, and we are working in tandem with the Wadia Institute. Ministry of Earth Sciences also have a large network of continuously operating reference stations, especially in the Andaman and Nicobars, to take care of observations during tsunami. So, like that, large number of CORS are currently available in India, which are functioning. Now our teams are going for various kind of expeditions, also like to Antarctica and Arctic, and in Gangotri also. So we have comfortable observations relatively which are available in the GNSS technology is through the PPP observations, that is a precise point of positioning. So there what we do is we have some licensed receivers which are based on the PPP method, uh, which are available from the Leica Trimble, that we get corrections from the satellites directly. So we need not to operate base in that case. We have only rover. So the user who is going to any part of the globe can use single receiver for getting the corrected coordinates to to sub meter level accuracies, normally referred to as 80 centimeter accuracy or so. So these PPP methods are similar to DGNSS positioning methods only. However, it uses permanent reference stations to quantify systematic errors. But that thing is done by the satellite, and the user need not to do it. So the service provider, sends the signals to the satellite directly to the receiver, which is capable of PPP processing. Only limitation here is that we need long term observations here. See, in case of DGPS observations, which we are doing with the small baselines, we can work sometimes with the observation of 20 minutes. If we have little longer baselines, we can work with the observation of 50 minutes, 1 hour, 90 minutes or so, then 24 days or 72 hours. So that depends upon the type of application and the requirements. However, in case of PPP, a minimum time what we are using is of the order of 3 to 4 hours. So we have that kind of requirement in case of PPP. That is the major limitation here. So there is a RTX service also available here. It is the real-time extended positioning solution. It is the technology resulting from statistical techniques providing users with centimeter level accuracy or sub-meter level real-time position accuracy anywhere on or near the Earth's surface using the precise satellite corrections, either through a satellite link, that is RTX SV, or the internet-based link, that is the RTX internet. So the examples of PPP service are automatic precise positioning service, APPS, using the GPS, that is the global differential GPS, or RTX service from Trimble, or SmartLink service from Leica. These are paid services. So Leica, SmartLink is also there, OmniStar service provider there, OSPOS, CSRS, PPP, Magic GNSS. Now the CSRS, PPP, some of these services are free of cost also, but the user has to see that, because CSRS, PPP, and some of the other services, you have to upload your data also. So if you can share your data, then only you will be able to use this service. Otherwise, you will not be able to use this service. In that case, you have to have the other choice only, that is the differential GNSS solution. So in that case, you have to operate the base station also along with the rover station. Different kinds of receivers are there, which are shown here. Many models are there. These are various kind of receivers which we are having. This kind of covers, this what you are seeing here, this is called radome. So it is a kind of a cap, or it is a cover to the GNSS receiver, which is used in some of the regions where we have some kind of heavy downpour or snowfall, for the protection of GNSS receivers, although they are waterproof. But for long-term observations, permanent observations, this radome is also being used. So what we can see GPS in terms of GIS is that we get a coordinate, and that coordinate can be used as a point. So in mapping grade receivers, we call it a point. In a recreational grade receivers where the accuracy is very less, we call it a waypoint. Or a combination of points for continuous observations that may give us a line, or that can form a polygon also. So this is the GIS view of GNSS observations. So we can create a track log also. You can download it from your GNSS receivers, or if you have a tracker, you can send the track log to your server also. As the technology has merged, we have in the receivers a GPS. Even in the smartphones also we have a GPS, as I have told initially in the start of the lecture. We have a mobile, we have a SIM card, we have a camera, we have a GIS software, GPS software, and a total station. And then the latest like MI8 I have told you, and the Redmi Pro 9 Note I have told you. Initially what coordinates we have been getting in the GPS, they were the processed coordinates which we were getting. But in the change which has happened very recently, in the Android applications, the smartphones are capable of getting the raw GPS data and process it at their end. So that is the latest development. Earlier we have been getting GPS service, we have been getting AGPS, which is the assisted GPS service, but they are the process points which we have been getting. But currently the smartphones on the latest Android services, they are capable of processing the raw GNSS data, and that is why these kind of facilities have started coming in the smartphone also. So this is again a change in the game actually. However, we do not see much of such equipments right now, but maybe down the line 3 years or 5 years, you will see that people are doing differential GNSS kind of operations using smartphones instead of carrying bulky receivers with them. So there are scientific softwares like Barneys, Gamut, Gypsy, Dipop, GeoNap, Articlab, and GLab from various agencies. Some of them are free of cost like Gamut, and some of them are on Windows platform, some are on the Linux platform. These can be downloaded, which are free of cost like Gamut, but others has to be procured like the Barneys from University of Bern. These are required for long-term observations where you have long baselines which are working, the GNSS receivers are working under different atmospheric conditions. So you need to download various ionospheric parameters, different files from the internet. You need to download and process them in the Barneys software to provide you sub-centimeter, sub-millimeter level of accuracies. However, for our routine applications and for the georeferencing purpose, the commercial softwares like SkiPro from Leica, Leica GeoOffice, or GPS Survey, or Trimble Business Center from Trimble, or GPSS from Aztec, Spectra Survey from Sokia, or GraphNav from Novatel. These can also be used, but they will have standard atmospheric models like Sastemonian and Hopfield models, and considering the base station and the rover station under the similar atmospheric conditions with some default parameters, we can process the data. So that is how we have two categories of processing softwares, also commercial softwares and scientific softwares. And based on our applications and requirements and the accuracy required, we can process them. These are some of the references which I have given for the ICT documents, which are the interface control documents, for the people who are interested in the physics behind this. And then there is a site I have mentioned here for online visiting, finding the which are the active satellites which are going to become active and which satellites are going to complete their life. All these are available here. So various links are given here for various snapshots which I have used in the slide presentation from various websites.